Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome 2016 MBA Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of Quicken Loans, Bill Emerson.
Wow. I love the sound of a little AC/DC in the morning, gets the blood flowing. Don't you love it? No, you don't love it? Because of this crazy industry we're in, though, every once in a while, don't you feel like you're on that highway? Come on, I know you do. I know you do. Listen, welcome to the 102nd MBA Annual here in the beautiful downtown Boston. We're here this morning to really transition. This is a morning of change. I'm going to get an opportunity to introduce Rodrigo Lopez. And I've thought about this the last couple of years. 1 year ago today, I was standing on the stage talking to you about what was going to happen. But that previous Saturday, the Saturday of MBA Annual has become a metaphor for change and for what's possible in the world through sports. Who remembers last year, Saturday, Michigan State, watching the game, knowing that Michigan was going to win, and Michigan blows it, Michigan State wins at the end of the game. Unbelievable, never seen a play like that before in my life. Saturday last year. This Saturday, some small school by the name of Pennsylvania State University blocks a punt and beats Ohio State. Phenomenal. But on that same day, a team from Chicago, not making the World Series for 71 years, not winning the World Series for 108 years, the Chicago Cubs make it into the World Series to play the Cleveland Indians. So truly, anything is possible. If you haven't learned that in the last 48 hours, you never will. So, my opportunity here just to say some things on the way out the door. People have asked me what it was like to be the chair of the MBA. I got to tell you, I had a phenomenal year traveling around the country. I enjoyed it immensely. It was exhilarating to interact with people all over the country, to see what's happening on the ground around the United States, and to understand what's happening from a housing finance perspective. And in the theory of, anything's possible, we talked last year about turning the page and figuring out how to start to transition from the last 8 years of just frankly getting the hell kicked out of us. And what do we do now, and how do we start thinking about it from a positive perspective? And I actually, on the road, saw some momentum around those very topics and starting to understand what we were going to get done. Last year, we continued the challenge of Bill Cosgrove on CEO engagement. I got to tell you that the CEOs in this industry are more engaged than I've ever seen. We put some tremendous programs together to make sure that they're engaged. But we all know at the end of the day, what the leadership of an organization does dictates what's going to happen inside of that organization, what they're going to focus on, what's going to matter. And so I want to thank the CEOs that have been engaged. For those of you that have a CEO or a senior leader that isn't, have them give me a call. I'm happy to talk to them because we want to make sure that we have as much momentum as possible. The second thing we wanted to do was around access to credit and the first-time home buyer, because the first-time home buyers historically have been 40% of the marketplace, and over the last 2 years have been languishing at about 30%. In the most recent reports that came out, starting to move the needle a little bit there, up to about 34, 35%, so we're starting to make some progress. We still have access to credit challenges and issues, but at least we're starting to see that very, very important aspect of the home buying process and that group start to come back. Inventory is an issue, we know that. Finding inventory at that price point is an issue. Building inventory at that price point is an issue, but at least we're starting to see that opportunity come back. I can't tell you how excited I am to have Rodrigo focused on diversity and inclusion, because it was something that we talked about last year as well. So critically important to the success of what we're going to do going forward. The demographics are clear, right? The millennial generation is going to be the most diverse generation in history. It is now the largest generation in history. It is now the largest generation in the workforce. So we have got to embrace that group. We've got to understand them. We've got to make sure that we're doing the right things by that group. The MBA is leading by example. Put 2 new awards out for member companies on what they're doing from a diversity and inclusion perspective. Women in Mortgage Banking, led by Marcia Davies, a phenomenal group that's been coming together. So I take my hat off to what the MBA staff has been doing and focused on. And like I said, I'm thankful that Rodrigo is going to carry the torch on that. Critically, critically important. When you talk about millennials, I'm not sure that we have that many of them in the room today. Anybody a millennial? I know I am. No, I'm just kidding. Technology. Technology. We talked about technology last year and how important technology is. That the generation coming up consumes information in a different way. There's just no two ways about it. Technology is going to happen to our industry. We can deny it all we want, but it's coming. It's transforming this industry. It's transforming every industry. So we can either get on the bus or we can be left behind. And so we tried to start raising the level of awareness around that. I know there's a lot of focus on the front end and apps and things that get delivered from a technology perspective, but we've got to be focused end to end from the time we originate a loan all the way through servicing and make sure that the experience for a consumer is as good as it can possibly be. Because listen, at the end of the day, if we don't do this as an industry, someone else will do it for us, and that's just not a good thing. We also talked about clarity of rules and the enforcement regime that exists and what can we do to make that better. Obviously, we saw a lot of rules come out. Last year at this time, there was a rule coming out called TRID. Anybody heard of TRID? We learned how to make a hamburger last year, if you were at the conference, about TRID, right? What do you do? How do you put a hamburger together on TRID? But the bottom line is it's now a year old. And as a result, and this as a result of the MBA's advocacy effort and the communication that the MBA has with the CFPB and with Richard Cordray, around the holidays last year, we got Richard Cordray to at least put a letter out to calm the market around the fears of what was happening with TRID. They've since come out and put out new rules, comment period closed, all because of the advocacy of what the MBA has been doing and trying to get clarity and understand what's happening from the enforcement regime out there. That piece of the puzzle still is what it is. I don't see any end in sight on that. We're just going to have to keep hammering away at the rock as we look into the future. But I will tell you, as I wandered around, one of the things that was just, it was so cool to see is this industry working together, coming together, talking about the issues. We have different business models. This MBA is a huge, huge tent. Getting everybody in that tent was incredible to see. We dialogued with the consumer groups. We dialogued with the regulators. And we were able to work together to accomplish some pretty cool things in the last year. And it just reminds me of something that I saw the other day. There's a poem by Maya Angelou. It's a phenomenal poem, but at the end of the day, we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. And that theme needs to be carried forward as we continue to work together in the industry. It needs to be carried forward when you think about the rhetoric that's happening out there in the political world. When we think about diversity and inclusion, so important that we realize that we're more alike than we're unalike. So I've got a few thank yous, a couple of comments, and then I'm going to get out of the way and introduce the next chairman of the MBA. But I first of all want to thank the board of directors for your effort, your energy, and everything that you put together to serve in the last year. I really do appreciate that. Resbog, Combog, the commercial multifamily folks I had the opportunity to interact with more this year than I ever have. I know we were working on some things as it relates to the CREF conference. I think we've made some great progress, so I appreciate all of your engagement. The former officers, all of you that reached out and lent a hand and offered advice on how to make this transition. Because listen, at the end of the day, when you're traveling around the country, you're running a company and you're being the chair of the MBA, there's a ton of stuff that's going on. I've learned a lot, I've grown a lot as a human being. And so it's just thankful to the officers for their feedback and input. I cannot say thank you to the MBA staff enough. It's a phenomenal group of people to see what they do every single day, the effort, the energy, the passion that they put into this industry, the advocacy that they put forth. You have a phenomenal group of people working on your behalf every single day. Marcia Davies does a phenomenal job of running that group, but you can't have a good group unless you have an incredibly strong leader, and that's Dave Stevens. And Dave, thank you very much for your leadership. Thanks for everything you've done for the year that I've been here. You've made it easy for me to be the chair of the MBA, and I'm looking forward to helping in any way that I can as I move on. I want to thank the Quicken Loans family for supporting me through this year because I was gone a lot. And last but not least, I got to thank my family. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here today. But my incredible wife, Marlene, is really the reason that I'm able to do what I do. I am because she is. She's an incredible human being. And my kids had the opportunity to be here last year, and I just want to thank them for the support. So I'm going to leave you with two final thoughts. I want you guys to think about this as you think about your businesses. I want you to think about this and use this lens as you move forward. I said this last year when I was talking. Every client, every time, no exceptions, no excuses. Every client, every time, no exceptions, no excuses. If you look at your business through that lens, every decision you make through that lens, you will be a better business, we will be a better industry, no two ways about it. Everything that I just talked about, CEO engagement, first-time homebuyer, diversity, technology, everything that you view, if you view it through that lens, you will be a better company and you will be a better person and we will be a better industry. And one last thing, do me a favor. No matter what you're doing, have fun. All right, don't take yourself too seriously. Have fun because life is just too short not to. All right? Thank you for the honor of being the chairman of the MBA. I appreciate you allowing me to do so.